Okay,
It's 6 o'clock. Go ahead,
Yep.
Yolanda. You want to start?
sure. Yes. Good evening. Welcome and thank you for being with us tonight, Tuesday, April 19, for our County of Napa Sheriff Coroner's Candidate Forum. I'm Yolanda Schambra of the League of Women Voters of Napa County. Tonight, we're here to help educate Napa County voters by giving you the opportunity to hear from the candidates for this race. While we usually provide in-person forums due to COVID-19 concerns, we're coming to you via Zoom webinar. We're providing Spanish translation via the Zoom interpreter capability. If you wish to listen to the Spanish translation, click the globe-like icon, usually on the bottom right of your screen, and check Spanish. Para escuchar en español, haga clic al icono del globo terráqueo que usualmente se encuentra abajo al lado derecho de la pantalla y escoja el canal de español. Our translator for tonight is Dalila Hernandez. Nuestra traductora es Dalila Hernández. We're recording this forum and it will be posted on YouTube, our LWV website, Facebook, and on other social media platforms. For FCC rules, no other recording of this forum or excerpts from the LWV recording are allowed. The League of Women Voters is a trusted membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We are nonpartisan and do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. The League does participate in issue advocacy and voter education. If you would like to join us in our work, please visit our website, lwnapa.org, for membership information and much, much more. That was lwvnapa.org. The League encourages civil discourse, and the candidates have all agreed to participate under guidelines set for this forum. The candidates have agreed to confine their remarks to their qualifications and issues, and not to resort to defamatory remarks about the candidate. Microphones and video are off for everyone except the candidates and the LWV forum team. Please remember to mute yourself while you're listening to the other candidate. Our League's team helping with this forum tonight are our moderator, Bernie Brooks, our timekeeper, Linda Dieter-Yolo. I will now turn the evening over to Bernie.
Thank you, Yolanda. I appreciate it. And good evening to everyone and welcome to the candidates. Tonight, we present the two candidates for the position of sheriff. We have Oscar Ortiz and John Crawford. This League of Women Voter Forum provides an opportunity for the community to learn about the candidates for this position. And we will do this by giving each candidate time for an opening statement. And before people came in, we picked names out of a hat and John will go first. Then we will alternate our questions in the order of the questions back and forth for 1 hour. And then we will finish with each candidate's closing statement. The questions we will be asking were solicited in advance from the community and from League of Women Voters members. Our team screened the questions to avoid duplication and to ensure nonpartisanship. The candidates have not seen the questions in advance. And candidates are watching the timekeeper window. When it's green and I turn the question over to them, they will start. When they have 30 seconds left, it will turn yellow. And when their time is up, it'll turn red. And I retain the right to mute any candidate who continues to run over their allotted time or violates our signed agreement to maintain civil discourse. The starting order, we picked names out of a hat and John came first, and we will start with 2.5 minutes for the opening statement. So John, please start. Oh, you're on mute.
Isn't that the way it goes?
It will happen over
Always
and over.
does. Yeah. welcome to Zoom land.
Yep.
So in any event, hello, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this forum this evening. First of all, you're probably wondering who's John Crawford and why should I vote for him as sheriff? And that's a great question. So I'm going to share 3 things about me: my upbringing, my education, and my career in law enforcement. because I'm a strong believer that experience matters. I also believe that family makes us who we are. And so I like to start there. I think it gives you an idea who a person is. My father, Charlie, and my mother, Jane, brought my sister and I to the Valley in 1970. My dad was the type of person who just never met a stranger. He was truly the least judgmental person that I've ever known, and taught me to just take people at their face value. My mother was a strong Latina. She owned her own business in the mid 80s and served the ag community. As you may know, that's obviously a male dominated field, and she did really well there. My mother taught me a lot about independent thought and about staying true to your moral compass. And both of my parents instilled a very strong work ethic in me. My mom was probably one of the hardest working people I've ever seen. As far as my own little family circle, I've been together with my wife, Carol, for over 30 years. We have 2 children who are twins, a boy and a girl. They're 11, and they're just truly a joy to us. And I'm sure, as all of you know, you learn so much about leadership from being a parent, and I've just been so grateful for that. After I graduated from Justin Siena High School, I went away to college at Chico State University, where I earned my degree in public administration. About 27 years ago, I started my law enforcement career working for the Shasta County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff, assigned to the main jail. After a brief time there, we returned to Chico, where I worked at the University Police Department for about 4 years, both very different law enforcement environments, of course. In 1998, we returned home to Napa, and I started my law enforcement career working for the Napa County Sheriff's Office. During my time at the Sheriff's Office, I worked in many assignments. As a deputy, I was known primarily for my work as a detective and as the president of the Napa County Deputy Sheriff's Association. But no matter where I worked, I always brought with me a passion to try to make things better. And I regularly found myself in leadership roles and promoted up through the ranks. In 2018, I was selected by Sheriff John Robertson to serve as his undersheriff, and I served in that role for 3 years. Now, for those that don't know, the role of the undersheriff is to act as the chief operations officer of the agency. You're responsible for every single person, program, division, bureau, and budget within the sheriff's office. This includes our contract cities of American Canyon, as well as the town of Yountville. I like to explain the undersheriff role in nautical terms. The sheriff is like the captain of a ship, and they decide the direction.
I'm sorry, John. I don't know if you can
sorry,
see.
hit the red. I couldn't see it.
We have to get into this routine of watching. Okay. Hopefully through the other questions and your closing statement, you'll have time to explain the rest.
Sure.
Sorry, takes a bit. Okay, thank you. Oscar, your turn, 2.5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, and thanks for having us. Thank you for putting this together. A little bit about myself in this moment. I want to introduce myself. My name is Oscar Ortiz. I am the Napa County Sheriff Coroner. I've been in that role for the better part of a year. Prior to this year, and it's been an interesting year, of course, not just with the campaign. We've had plane crash. We actually had a couple of fires last year. Fortunately, they were smaller, but I did respond to both of those. We had actually some flooding in December, believe it or not, and then we had a wind event that caused some road closures. But I've been able to hire 13 deputies in that year, and also some professional staff. It's been a busy year, and I think there's busy times ahead. I've been prepared for this job. I prepared for it largely through executive development throughout my 30-year career with the county of Napa, 26 of it, specifically to the sheriff's office. I worked my way up from a part-time employee extra help jailer at 20 years of age to my current position. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the hard work. I've always been the kind of person that looks for hard work, finds the hard work, and then takes it on and takes on challenges. Throughout my career, I was able to develop both an associate's and later a bachelor's degree in executive development. When I went to American Canyon, being able to do forecast budgeting, analysis of trends, and deployment of resources, also in emergency management. I've been in law enforcement management for a total of 9 years. That's longer than anybody in our department. And in that 9 years, my first emergency management role was the 2014 earthquake. I've been out to Anniston, Alabama for FEMA training, for a week-long FEMA training course. I've taken countless other FEMA training courses, and I've been involved in pretty much every disaster from the earthquake through including the 2020 LMU lightning fire complex. That includes pandemics, that includes fires in between, and even some other events. I'm very proud, also a graduate of the FBI National Academy, where I spent 3 months away from my family in Quantico, Virginia, for executive development. So throughout my 30-year career with the county of Napa, 26 of it with the sheriff's office. I believe I am the most qualified candidate for sheriff in this race. I have volunteered countless hours in the community, countless hours in my own department, instructor at the academy, instructor at the Criminal Justice Training Center for field training officers. I've been a mentor, a coach to hundreds, if not thousands of kids throughout Napa County. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to get started. And now with the first question and rotating, Oscar, you will start first. The first question. If you are elected sheriff, what are your goals for the next 4 years? 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I think several things. Number one, I'm my whole career in law enforcement has been here in Napa County and here at the sheriff's office. And one thing I take pride in is this department has always been more than just a best practices department. The Napa Sheriff's Office exceeds best practices, and I like to think of us as cutting edge. So because coaching and mentoring, beyond what I do on my off-duty time with volunteer work, but even as a field training officer, as a manager of the field training program, as an instructor at the training center, training is a passion of mine. Training and mentoring is important to me, and I want to keep us on that path of being a cutting edge department that has the best training available so that we can best serve our citizens. The deputy sheriffs do an amazing job, and they provide a great level of service to our community. And really, it's what our community deserves, because our community is very supportive in Napa. They deserve high-level law enforcement services. And I believe the deputies, the men and women of the sheriff's office, deliver that. And as soon as you think you're good enough, you're behind. So one of the things I strive to do is continue to find new ways to police, new ways to serve, and find ways to continue to improve the level of service we provide here at the sheriff's office.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start back over again. Yeah, great. John, if you are elected sheriff, what are your goals for the next 4 years?
So one of my goals realistically over the next 4 years, I've been out knocking on doors personally quite a bit. I close to 1,000 doors, and in doing that and talking to people throughout the community, I know we do a great job, and we do. And I'm really proud of all the men and women that work at the sheriff's office. But there are still people out there that feel disenfranchised, and they feel like law enforcement in general is not there for them. And I think we need to work on that. So one of my goals would be to first out of the gate to have town hall meetings and just be an active listener and listen to people in the community and hear what they want from their sheriff's office. The training, of course, is something we do, we have done, we'll always do because it's necessary. But I think really one of the things I would like to do, for instance, is we do have a Latinx leaders forum already in place, but I'd like to expand that and maybe have one also for the LGBTQ plus community so that they can have their voices heard. Maybe have a forum that meets with the sheriff for the ag leaders so that they feel like their needs are being listened to and being dealt with regularly. And it's just so important. People need to be able to trust their law enforcement. They need to be able to feel like they're being listened to. People need to be heard, and they need to be cared for. And that's where I want to bring our agency. The nuts and bolts of things are going to continue to do move forward in the way they're supposed to, based on the hard work of the men and the women that work at the sheriff's office.
Thank you. Okay. So John, now you'll be first for this question. This question is, how will you foster cooperation with the Departments of Corrections and Probations on improving public safety outcomes and in helping facilitate the reintegration back into the community of those formerly incarcerated? Would you support programs such as community introduction meetings facilitated by a professional to ease reentry?
I would actually, I would support that. I think that anytime that we can get someone who has been incarcerated or disenfranchised in any way back into the fold of our society, it not only does it impact them, it impacts all of us. That's a quality of life issue, not just for that one person, but for our whole community. So of course, I'm very much behind that. And even if someone were to propose something like restorative justice, I think I'd be behind that as well. And that's it's a specific program. It has to have specific people involved. You have to have an offender who is truly sorry for what they've done, and a victim who would be willing to engage with that person, and therefore kind of give them both that sense of catharsis and just closure that people need. Just because someone commits a crime doesn't mean they're a bad person. A lot of people make mistakes for various reasons, and so absolutely, I would support any evidence-based programs scientifically shown to improve or or lower really the rates of recidivism. And certainly, like I said, programs like restorative justice, I think would be interesting to look at as well.
Thank you, John. Oscar, same question.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely would support anything to reduce recidivism. And I think Napa County is ahead of the curve statewide on evidence-based practices. I can tell you, I remember working in the jail for 5 years and then being a patrol deputy on Graveyard, and the tow truck driver that showed up being somebody that used to be incarcerated. It's like, hey, what's up? He's just super happy to see me and kind of have a job and doing well. I also have the perspective from over 20 years of coaching amateur boxing, going with elite teams, traveling around the country and having coaches who maybe didn't make good decisions in their youth. And they've been sober for 30 years, or business owners, or very successful, they're homeowners, but they made some mistakes when they were younger. And being able to see that people do well with second chances. But they have to be done with caution, with good programming. And I think that there's a lot of success stories out there, and kind of analyzing those success stories and finding the best way to replicate that in our incarcerated community is really in the best interest for the community as a whole. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm proud to say that I have friends from boxing circles who have been very successful. And I think it can be done.
Thank you. Okay, Oscar, you will start first on this question. The county plans to build a new $128 million, 300+ bed jail next to the new reentry facility to replace the Napa downtown one that was damaged by the earthquake. Meanwhile, realignment laws are reducing jail populations. So what thoughts do you have for uses for possible excess jail space, given realignment may reduce jail populations going forward?
That's a really good question. And actually, realignment laws are very much reducing prison populations, but not doing much to reduce jail population, because they're just placing those longer sentences in a jail setting. Again, as we mentioned in the earlier question, we have to find a way to reduce recidivism. We have to find a way to get people on their feet and get people off of crime. But we have to do it in such a way that we're not doing just automatic catch and release. Because of jail crowding issues, because of problems across the state, we're seeing a lot of situation where the offender is not being done any favors, because they're not given an opportunity to reconnect with their family, to reevaluate their life choices, and get on that road to recovery, or that road to making better decisions. So, the jail project is a complicated one. The jail project budget is being looked at to see if it's still appropriate. And those are conversations happening at the CEO's office. But there's always has to be a way. The solution really is to find ways to keep people not commit crime at the end of the day. That's what everybody's interested in.
Great, thank you. And John, same question to you.
So correct, AB 109, the realignment was Jerry Brown's idea to save the state money by shifting offenders from state prison to the local jail. So realistically, I think what we're going to find is our jail is going to be impacted, and it isn't already impacted with longer sentences. And so really the necessity for a new jail is there. The current jail wasn't built with these things in mind. And I think many counties find themselves in a similar situation. Realistically, before AB 109, someone could be sentenced to prison for their entire life, but they, generally speaking, were only sentenced to jail for a year. So the issue there becomes when you're now sentenced to jail potentially for 15 to 20 years, which has happened in some counties in California, how does that person have access to programs and the rehabilitation they're going to need over that 20-year period? Our current jail is just not set up for that. And so the jail project is a necessary one. I agree that I think the budgeting or the financing of it is going to be tricky. And I just honestly don't see that it's going to have excess space. It's going to be an interesting road that we go down. However, we do happen to see a lot of people that kind of go in and out because of Prop 47 or Prop 57, where we've basically lowered the limits of punishment for certain crimes. And it's created kind of this lawlessness that we see with the smash and grab type thefts where people, you know, in San Francisco can hardly leave their car without it being a target. So.
Thank you. And John, now you will be first for this question. If passed, California Senate Bill 1464 would cut off state funds to any law enforcement agency that publicly opposes state or local public health orders issued for the prevention of spreading a communicable disease. Do you support or oppose this bill, and why?
So it's a really interesting bill. One of the problems I have with it is it basically usurps the authority of the sheriff, the trust that the people placed in the sheriff to make the decisions on how things should be enforced and what should be enforced. And the reason it does that is part of the language in the bill. It says that the sheriff shall follow the directives of the public health officer. And while we all believe in Dr. Relucio particularly, and I'm sure in other counties, they believe in their public health officials as well. Those decisions need to be made by the sheriff, not necessarily by a medical professional. And the other issue with it too, which is interesting, is that the funding that's held back is pandemic-related funding. It's the health-related funding. So in other words, if we were to receive funding to create a new program that was going to assist us in enforcing public health orders, then we would no longer receive that funding. So I think there's some issues with it. I do think we all need to do our part. We need to make sure that we listen to the suggestions of our medical professionals. But at the same time, I have a hard time with law enforcement being used to enforce a medical directive. And particularly when you look at what's happened recently with the federal courts where they've overturned the mask mandate on planes, and that's not to cast aspersion on anybody. It's just, it was a novel virus. We weren't sure how things were going to shake out. And so you have to be able to change direction. And the courts are showing that.
Okay, thank you, John. And Oscar?
Thank you. I don't know that I'm going to need a whole lot of time for this response. I want to be clear that I am opposed to this bill. And really, I want to explain why. There's three branches of government: the judicial branch, executive branch, and legislative branch. The sheriff's office is part of the executive branch. This bill starts to blur those branches and put the onus on the sheriff and not give any discretion. And I would not want to put a deputy sheriff in a position where they don't have a choice and they end up having to use force. There's nothing in this bill that says that the prosecutor has to prosecute. There's nothing in this bill that charges have to be filed. So we get in a situation where a deputy sheriff is in an incident and with somebody that over a health order, which might result in the enforcement action being taken, and that could result in a use of force. And there's absolutely no reason for force to be used in any setting on a health order at this point in the pandemic. So where we're at now and what we know of this virus, I don't think this is good legislation. I think we need to separate the three branches of government. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Oscar, now you will start. Please explain your understanding and position about problem-oriented policing programs and if you think they are or could be effective in Napa.
We have a problem-oriented policing program here at the Sheriff's Office, and it's a very good program. Traditional uniform patrol is, it's traffic enforcement or responding to calls for service, but a POP, to use the acronym, is really looking at specific problems and looking at it from several dimensions. Is it something that can be addressed by partnering with health and human services individuals or homeless outreach or other jurisdictions or mental health or substance abuse? It's just what it sounds like. It's how can we bring resources to solve this problem for usually quality of life type issues. Problem-oriented policing programs are around in different departments, and they've been around here at the Sheriff's Office for several years. One of the things they do is they specialize in drug endangered children cases where they investigate households where children might be in danger from drug use. And it's not about separating children from their parents. It's about using the law enforcement resources to push the parent into treatment for the ultimate goal is a healthy reunification of children with their parents and a healthy household. So I am proud of our POP program, and I do encourage our people to apply and to be a part of our POP team.
Great, thank you. And John, same question.
So absolutely, do I support the POP program? I do. And as a matter of fact, at one point in my career, I was the sergeant supervising that unit. And so I believe in it very strongly because I've seen it work. So what it is essentially is it's addressing quality of life issues from a non-traditional police approach. It's using your resources, partnering with other agencies within the county to get to the root causes and not just be reactive, you're being proactive. And so for instance, one of the cases we worked on when I was in the unit was there was an auto dismantler that was kind of working, not really within the rules and causing issues with environmental issues. There was a lot of toxic waste. And so they had been cited several times and really kind of to no avail. And so we were able to bring different resources, Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife at this point, as well as code enforcement and different county and state level agencies to really move in and clean that out, because that was really causing some environmental damage to that particular part of the county. So as well as we were able to work on housing issues where people were being charged rent for substandard housing units and things with exposed wires and bare plumbing and all that sort of stuff that caused really some significant, like I said, quality of life issues. And again, working with either code enforcement or consumer affairs from the district attorney's office, or just instead of just coming out, writing a ticket and leaving, you really get to the root cause of the problem, and then it just kind of resolves itself.
Great, thank you. Okay, John, now this time you'll be first for this question. What ideas do you have for reducing staff shortages, considering budget challenges and difficulty bringing in new recruits? What will you do to develop a more diverse sheriff's department?
So what I found works best is to bring in the recruit level employee. When I was the undersheriff, I obtained additional funding because it is somewhat costly, but in the long run, it's cost effective. Initially, it's a significant expense. When you take 100 people off the street, basically you can take 2 of them will get past all the hurdles it takes to be a law enforcement officer. That's the background investigations, the interviews, the mental health inquiries, the physical inquiries, everything that needs to be done, not to mention the training programs they have to get through. However, what you find is you have people that are loyal to your agency because you've sponsored them to go through school. You've invested that kind of time. You're able to show them that acceptance and I'll even call it love that the agency can show a person. And on top of that, when you cast that wider net, law enforcement, as we all know, tends to be a somewhat white male dominated profession. But when you cast that wider net to people that aren't already integrated into the system, because there's other types of people you can hire called laterals, they're already trained officers, you end up with really good people that are also really diverse and have definitely diverse lifestyles, different life experiences. And that ends up making the department just stronger as a whole, having all those differences that you can get, again, by hiring at the recruit level.
Thank you. And Oscar.
Yeah, so just like every other industry across the state, really across the country, recruitment is a challenge and it's a struggle. One of the things that we want to do here at the Sheriff's Office, and we've been working on, is doing recruitment, continuous and constant recruitment for those recruit level deputies, while the door is still open for those journeyman level law enforcement officers, those laterals, as John mentioned. But we do need, like professional sports, we need some kind of a farm system. And I think being able to hire recruits and being able to mentor people into that farm system for eventual trainee positions in the academy. And really the most important thing, and this is again something near and dear to my heart, is the quality of the field training, because after all the hurdles of getting hired, and I want to speak to that a little bit, we still have to train them. And even if they make it and they get hired and they make it to the academy, the training program is also very challenging. And that's because that's where the bar is, that's the expectation. One of the things that some young people have as an advantage in the hiring process, because they have maybe their dad was a law enforcement officer or their uncle, and they get a lot of mentoring on how to apply and how to go through the testing process. So our team is working on developing some kind of a community workshop where we can have college age and young people who maybe don't have that parent in law enforcement or that close relative in law enforcement. They can kind of coach them on what to expect through the very rigorous testing process, and some kind of a workshop that will just fill that gap or fill that role. And I believe doing that will definitely increase our diversity, definitely increase our numbers and our success in the hiring process, so that we can get more people into the pipeline, more people into the farm system, if you will, and more people eventually serve in our community.
Thank you. All right. Now, Oscar, you will start first. And the next question is, what are some of your ideas and strategies to prevent juvenile crime in Napa?
Again, I think that we have some tremendous community partners in Napa County. I've mentioned it before. We have here at the Sheriff's Office, we have a youth mentoring program where we coach wrestling, judo, boxing, and an after-school center. But we also have other community groups, other nonprofits here in Napa that do tremendous work to work with not just families, but work with parents and work with young people. And I think all those things working, I've been working closely with several of those partners throughout my whole career since I started my career, because I've been coaching for over 22 years. I think I started coaching when I was like a 2-year cop. And I've had opportunity to work with juvenile probation officers with some of their probationary wards. I've had opportunity to work with other nonprofits that do education for parents. And really it's a three-legged stool. It's our education system, it's our parents, and there is a role there for law enforcement and diversion programs early to really work with these kids and get them on the right path. And we can do it from a three-pronged attack. And I think it's we've seen a lot of success with it.
Thank you. And John, now, same question.
Sorry, Bernie, would you mind repeating the question for me?
Certainly. What are your ideas or strategies to prevent juvenile crime in Napa?
Thank you. So, growing up in Napa, one of the things that we've always said and continues to be said, I should say we used to say and continues to be said, is that there's not really anything to do in Napa. That's what the young people always say. And they say that idle hands are the devil's workshop. So back to what has been previously mentioned, our SAL program, I have this vision for, and that's the acronyms, the Sheriff's Athletic League. And currently, it's housed in a bunch of different places around town. Real estate's at a premium here, so part of it's at the state hospital. Sometimes it's at Justin Siena High School. We have the program in American Canyon, all different places. And occasionally those programs get canceled. And what's the message that sends those kids when you're not able to go to wrestling that day because there's a play or there's a meeting or something else is going on? And wouldn't it be fabulous if we could have a facility that was so well built, so well designed, that not only would the kids want to go there, but so would all the first responders, whether they're nurses or firefighters, EMTs, police officers, deputy sheriffs. Wouldn't that be great if they could all exercise together and sort of playing long ball? You influence people by being around them. So some of these kids that might have leanings towards disorder or making bad choices, maybe just that one day they're working out with somebody that's a successful professional in law enforcement or some other first responder type, and maybe that's the difference for them that day. So that's kind of my ultimate goal in that regard.
Thank you. And now, John, you'll go first for this next question. It seems that more local crime is committed by people outside of the county. What strategies would you recommend for deterring this type of crime, like the catalytic converter and grab and go thefts?
Yeah, so certainly, particularly in American Canyon, with it's a geography thing. There's easy access from 2 or 3 different points. There's major thoroughfares that are very close. And so you tend to have out-of-towners, if you will, that come in to commit these crimes. It certainly does also happen in the city of Napa and Up Valley, but probably not quite as much frequency. One of the things you can do is you can try to develop a reputation as a county that is very aggressive in pursuing the sort of accountability of people that commit these crimes. And that's by working with the district attorney's office. You can also include citizen programs. You know, you have a robust, maybe you create a program where you have citizens on patrol, as they've called it before. You get more eyes and ears out there to help you notice things. You're able to sort of interrupt crimes, not the civilians, obviously, but they're able to let us know what's happening. And the more successful we are at catching people, prosecuting people, they're committing these crimes that have chosen to have a lifestyle of committing crimes, then you hope that that reputation extends past the borders of your own little county into areas where people live that perhaps they don't have quite the same idea of what it means to be a good citizen or a good neighbor. And so, yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Oscar, same question.
Yeah, actually, crime is very transient. It doesn't really respect jurisdictional lines. My 3.5 years in American Canyon, I saw that firsthand. 2/3 of the arrests at American Canyon weren't even American Canyon residents. There really is no respect. You know, to John's point, I think having that reputation is valuable. We did see that. You know, all jail phone calls are recorded. I can tell you a funny jail phone call story where an individual was arrested at the Walmart parking lot with several ounces of methamphetamine. And when he called, he was from out of county. When he called to try to arrange bail, and he told his friend where he was arrested at, the other individual online said, "Oh, you were at the American Canyon. You must be trying to go to jail." So we got a kick out of that, and I think that speaks to the reputation. But I can tell you, you know, having more eyes and ears is important. When I took over to American Canyon, the Neighborhood Watch Registry was about 200 residents. By the time I left, there was over 2,000 people registered for Neighborhood Watch, and we did that through what we call the Lobo campaign, which was a mascot to increase registry at American Canyon. And the kids love it. The kids take a picture with the mascot. The families love it. The residents love it. They register with Neighborhood Watch. They register their cameras, their surveillance cameras. Now, that's not to give us access to their cameras. That's to help us develop leads. So if there's catalytic converter theft on a street, we're able to go to the registry program and say, "Oh, there's a bunch of cameras on that street. Let's go knock on the door and see if they can help us solve that crime. They can be a partner." And that's really the beauty of policing in American Canyon, is very much a partnership between the residents and their police department. And it's something that we cultivated over the years and something I was very proud to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now Oscar, you will start on this next question, please. What will you do to comply with SB 16 and SB 1421 having to do with the release of records related to officer use of force incidents, sexual assault, and acts of dishonesty?
I would comply. If any legislation that puts mandates, we have to comply. There really isn't an option. We've dealt with these bills. We've gotten some of these requests for information, and we comply, and we have to. There's really no option there. The legislation is there. I think the better question is, what can we do to, again, be cutting edge, train our people, use our body-worn camera, and have our people be the professional and high-level deputy sheriffs that they are, to prevent any kind of use of force that's going to trigger one of these requests. So I think that's very important. I think that's something that we have to stay on top of, and something I think we do very well at already. Thank you.
Thank you. And John, same question to you.
So particularly SB 1421, basically what that did was it created a situation where there was 4 instances where an internal affairs investigation, which typically are closed to the public, becomes available to the public. Those 4 instances are an use of deadly force, where someone actually dies because you've used force on them, when an officer has been found to have been untruthful through an investigation, and also when an officer or deputy has committed sexual assault on duty. So obviously these are all areas where you're going to comply. I mean, as mentioned, when there's a shall in the law, then you do it. That is what it is. But you should be okay with that. You should release those records because your community, again, needs to be able to trust that you're going to do the right thing. And to the point of training, you know, you can train everybody to the moon, and they're going to do great 99% of the time. And 99% of the time, all that training, it keeps you out of using force. There's a lot of science out there that shows the more you train, the less force you use. And of course, that's where we want to be. But that doesn't prevent things like what happened to Deputy Riley Jarecki, where she was just patrolling an area and in a split second, somebody tried to take her life. And of course, she responded accordingly. And unfortunately, the other person died. And that's never a good thing when somebody dies like that. But at the same time, of course, we're very happy that she survived. So the training is important. The clarity is important, and just being prepared is also very important.
Thank you. Now, John, the next question. How have you built trust between Napa Valley community and the sheriff's departments, and what other ideas do you have to improve this trust?
So a lot of my trust has just been developed by being who I am. I'm a very straightforward person. I'm very open. Whenever I've taken a call, handled a call, as a supervisor on a call, I've always been I've been John, and I don't walk around with a uniform on in a sense that, you know, the uniform defines me. I'm just a regular person doing a job. And those little contacts that we can all have as deputies are what make a difference. Programs are fantastic. Getting out in the community, you know, I'm the board member for Rotary. I'm a board member on Leadership Napa Valley. Those things are great. They allow you to be in sort of an organized environment where you can kind of get big projects done and really invest in the community. But to me, the true investment in the community is every day that you go out there and you contact somebody, you treat them like they're your family. You're just a person. You're not a badge talking to them. You're just another human being talking to a human being. And that does more to instill trust in a relationship with your community than I think any program will. And so that's what I always try to do. And that's what I spent every day doing in my career.
Thank you. And Oscar.
Yeah, thank you. I think that, you know, outreach programs are productive. I think children seeing, community events, health fairs, where they see a table with, you know, we mentioned earlier, the POP team, and we just have, we have messaging, we have, you know, stickers. Those things go a long ways. And I think it kind of takes away some of that uniform stigma that I think that John was referring to have, you know, a smile. One of the things that I told the officers in American Cane, I told the deputies here at the Sheriff's Office now is, you know, I understand sunglasses and protection of your eyes when you're driving, you know, in the daylight. But when you stop in for coffee or you stop in to have lunch, you know, take your sunglasses off, because eye contact is huge. A family walks in, you know, at Starbucks, a mom walks in with her 2 kids to get her latte on the way to drop the kids off to school. To be able to make eye contact and exchange a warm smile and a high five with a child goes a really long ways. And it's a very simple gesture to just kind of temporarily be more than just that uniform, more than just that cop, and be that you know, that neighborhood officer, that neighborhood deputy that people look forward to seeing when they go to the coffee shop. People look forward to seeing and wave at when they see driving by. Those things, as a leader, I've shown, I've led through that throughout my career. I think our management folks, our captains and above, and our lieutenants need to be at fundraisers, at scholarship dinners, and at any any possibility where we see a chance to be an ambassador for the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, to be an ambassador for the department. I think those things are important. And I've been a part of that community and part of those circles for my entire career. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. And now, Oscar, you're first for this question. It's a little bit of a two-parter. Are you concerned about the influence of money in politics? And if so, what would be your solutions? And the second part, have you placed any voluntary restrictions on yourself in terms of campaign fundraising?
Yeah, the Thank you. The restrictions I've placed on myself are the restrictions that we have, right? Is we have campaign fundraising restrictions. So that's where we're at. I don't know that I've volunteered any other restrictions, but campaigns are extremely expensive. I'm very proud of our fundraising, but I would love to be able to raise more. We have worked very hard for almost a year now. Well, not quite a year, about 9 months. We have received over 200 donations from over 150 different donors, a variety of donors. Half of our donations are less than $250. And the quarter of them are just $25 or less. But whether somebody donates, $1 or no dollars, or to donate to my opponent, I think campaigns are expensive, but there's no reason to treat anybody different. Everybody gets the same level of law enforcement they deserve, no matter how much they donate or who they donate to. And as far as the restrictions or laws, that's a legislative branch issue. And I would be open to the legislative branch doing anything if there's concerns there. Thank you.
Thank you. John, same question.
So I think, at least from the public, there's always concerns when there's large donations given to candidates, political candidates. And while the sheriff is a political candidate, it's a law enforcement job. So there's a little bit more concern, I think, from some people. And as mentioned, there's a $4,900 limit per person, but there's loopholes with that. And for instance, a single family could donate 5 donations and have it be $25,000 from a single source, essentially, and still be within the rules. It's kind of a loophole. So I would absolutely welcome an overall cap fundraising. I think that, for instance, if we had $100,000 cap on how much people could raise, which seems it's an ungodly amount of money, obviously, especially when you get it $200 at a time or $500 at a time or whatever, or even 50. Then what you're doing is you're really banking on the candidate. You're looking at the person, you're kicking the tires, so to speak. And it's not about how many mailers you can send out, how much money you can pump into digital advertising to make your ads pop up more on Facebook. It's really truly then becomes more of a grassroots thing where the candidates actually have to get out and talk to people and knock on their doors and go to their houses and go to events and spend some time really exposing themselves, if you will, for who they are, so that people can get a great feel for them individually as a person. And so I would absolutely welcome an overall cap and on fundraising.
Okay, thank you. Okay, John, you'll be first for this question. What will you do to support community-based organizations such as COAD, CASA, Voices, etc.?
So first, you have to be accessible to them, and I would be. As far as COAD, particularly when I was in leadership Napa Valley, you have a project that you work on, and the project that my group and I created was called the Napa Neighbor Network. And what that did was basically created a program, kind of a skeletonized program that you could take and flesh out in your own community based on your needs, your neighborhood. And what it did was encourage people to get to know each other before a disaster strikes. You don't want to have that be the first time you meet your neighbor at 2 o'clock in the morning during an earthquake and everybody's standing around in their slippers and wondering who's who and introducing themselves. You want to know if your neighbor across the street has some infirmity that you need to help them with, or infirmity, excuse me, or if your neighbor to your left maybe has some skill in medicine or anything of that nature. So and that program was actually adopted by COAD. It was used by COAD. So I'm proud of that. And so I've already got some established roots there. And really what you do is you just look to see where your skill set can benefit them, and maybe their skill set can benefit you. And that collaboration is key. And in my career, I've been known for collaborating with outside agencies, with outside departments, and I would just continue to do that and work with them on a daily basis to see how we can bring the best level of service to our county.
Thank you. And Oscar, same question.
Yeah, I think there's an important role for any department head and leadership positions in the county, and especially in law enforcement, to work with our community-based organizations. I remember being I think it was a 3-year deputy sheriff and working with a nonprofit, Nuestra Esperanza, and putting together a parenting class when we saw gang crimes kicking up. And that was, before I even started promoting. Throughout my career, I've had opportunity to work with, opportunities to work with organizations like COPE, organizations like, I'm a board member on NEWS, the Women's Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault program that we have here in Napa County for services for victims. And throughout my career, I've always found that we have an amazing philanthropic community in Napa County, and we can leverage that to support these groups and support the partnerships that we can offer. The COAD is a great organization. We've actually incorporated them into our emergency management structure. So we have a chair for the COAD in the EOC now. And that came in really handy. When I was at American Canyon, we had a 4-day power outage, which actually a lot of perishable food was lost by residents in the community. And the COAD was instrumental in bringing groceries to a distribution center at City Hall. And my heart was warmed participating in that distribution. There was people that were redistributing their distribution. In other words, they would get 2 cartons of eggs and see a family behind them in line with three kids, and then say, "Hey, honey, take my extra carton of eggs. I'm not going to eat them all. You've got 3 kids." It's just a wonderful thing to see. And I think that is one of the great things that the COAD does, is when we need them for sheltering support, when we need them for food needs, they always step up. And so I think we have great community organizations in Napa County, and we can continue to take advantage of that.
Thank you. And now, Oscar, you'll be first for this question. Please describe the services you think should be offered at the Napa Reentry Facility.
So at the Napa Reentry Facility, which is still has yet to be opened or populated, I think there's an opportunity when it does get populated for probation and corrections to identify the low enough security inmate that would benefit from either culinary training or kitchen work, or something that will easily transition into one of the many jobs that are available. We have, in the South County, we have, between the near the airport area and the north end of American Canyon, we have tons of warehouses for storage, mainly wine storage, refrigerated storage, and there's lots of warehouse jobs. So the college actually is starting up a program, and we're trying to connect our kids from ENCO, from the Office of Education, to that pipeline, so they can get forklift certified and different warehouse skills, so they can just transition from high school graduation to a job. These are the kind of things that we could do with the reentry facility when we are able to populate it. But right now, we mentioned earlier AB 109 and the different kind of inmate that's populating county jails. There's a real struggle to find the inmate that would qualify for that low level of security setting to transition them into reentry. And that's something that corrections and probation are working on as we speak. But I think there's a great kitchen there if you've ever get a chance to tour it, and there's a lot of potential. Thank you.
Thank you. And John, same question for you.
Sure. So yeah, the reentry facility, really, it's all about potential at this point. As mentioned, AB 109 and COVID and different things of that nature have really made it so there's no one eligible to be out there for programs. However, I think were they to be out there, I think you have to look at the root causes of crime and criminal behavior and try to modify those. And I think we all know one of the primary issues is drug and alcohol abuse that we're dealing with in our county. Methamphetamine is a terror. Basically, it ruins people and their lives and their families' lives, and it's generational. And I think that one of the biggest things we can do, one of the best things we can do, is maybe incorporate an NA or AA program out there, have it regular, and even to the point where sponsors can come from outside of the facility and have a room where it can be people from the community, people that are well vested and learned in AA and NA and been through there, have been there and done that, and able to really get people to the point where their addiction doesn't have such a control over their life, and they're able to start making good decisions and develop good habits and learn what it takes to get there one day at a time. On top of that, I think welding programs, other skills, labor trades could, establish a sheet metal program or electrician program. I think we all know that the trades are hurting just as everyone else is for qualified candidates. And if we could get somebody out of a facility such as that one and turn their life around, that'd be a win for all of us.
Thank you. And John, now the next question. How well do you think the police department, sheriff department, and highway patrol coordinate responsibilities? And what are your concerns and ideas for any improvements?
So we work really, really, really well together. We're a small county. In my experience as the incident commander during the Tubbs fire, I was the night watch incident commander and embedded with CAL FIRE at their incident command. We heard repeatedly that, because a lot of the times when the emergency management teams come, they come from Southern California, different places around the state. And what I heard repeatedly was how well Napa worked with CAL FIRE and other agencies, how different it was, how proud we should be of how things work in Napa. And we are proud of that. Inherently, when you come to our agency, like I mentioned, when you bring somebody in new, one of the things you are ingrained with them is that we work well with everyone else because we depend on everyone else equally. You have this symbiotic relationship. The one thing I am concerned about, particularly with CHP, not so much with Napa PD, we share a dispatch center, so we use the same frequencies. We're able to hear each other's calls. We can oftentimes self-attach, they call it. In other words, you go to the call before anybody even asks you to. And that happens on a regular basis with the Napa Police and even with the St. Helena and Calistoga Police as well. The CHP work off of a different radio system, so it can be challenging. We are able to communicate with them through their portable radios that they wear on their belts, but it's not as efficient. So that's kind of a concern. There is a new funding for radio programs that's out there that'll make us all more cross-communicative, if you will. But that's really my only concern in that regard.
Thank you. And Oscar, same question.
As John mentioned, we do have a really good relationship with our police partners, all our cities in the county. And that really comes to light during our disasters. Everybody remembers, like it was yesterday, the 2017 Atlas fire is actually the one that was the Napa County Fairgrounds Command Post. The Tubbs was up in Santa Rosa. But during that incident, the first people that came to our aid, the first people that came to the sheriff's office aid was Napa police officers. And then, from there, we were able to get San Helena, Calistoga, and then we were able to get Solano County agencies to come help. Contra Costa, we had San Mateo County agencies, we had Alameda County agencies, all that through the mutual aid system that was coordinated out of the Emergency Operations Center. It was a tremendous response, a tremendous effort from all our mutual aid partners. And it's something that we continue to refine and improve. It's something that as state sheriffs, we're talking about fine tuning even more. As good as everybody did, we want to make it even better. And so we are in conversations now, my fellow sheriffs and I, on finding ways to have the ability to bring in mutual aid and logistical needs for that mutual aid and respond to help one another in our times of needs. As these disasters really don't know jurisdictional lines. These disasters jump jurisdictional lines and they move all up and down the state. But our first call and their first call is our local police department. By government code, the sheriff is the mutual aid coordinator. And in Napa County, I'm proud to say it works very well.
Thank you. Okay, now, Oscar, you will start. And this question is, what would you have as plans for community education on programs how to be safer? For instance, scams against seniors, business theft, domestic abuse. What would you have plans for?
So we've done things, and COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench in the last couple of years, quite frankly. With there's only so much you can do on Zoom. But we've done things historically, and we certainly did things in American Canyon for in-person crime prevention conversations, how to prevent identity theft or mail theft, how to prevent, how to be safe, stranger danger for children. We still do, one of the few agencies that still do the DARE program. And the DARE program, is kind of evaporating across the state, but we still really get enjoyment out of seeing that relationship between those children and their DARE instructor, deputy sheriff. And some of that program, most of that program is about healthy decision-making. It's not a quote unquote just say no program. That's what it gets criticized as being. It has nothing to do with just say no. That's just a mislabel. It's really about healthy decision-making that is actually supposed to be in the curriculum of the children per the education code. It's just delivered by a guest speaker, which is a deputy sheriff. And then for the younger age groups, those DARE deputies teach those stranger dangers. Our neighborhood watch programs, again, they teach, lighting and crime prevention strategies. We do crime prevention through environmental design assessments for businesses and for homes, so they can do the best with their landscaping and their lighting to try to not be a target for crime. To your point, we have some fantastic weaponless defense or self-defense instructors in our department, and I would certainly be open to having them be a resource for the community as well for any kind of seminars. But really, it's more about awareness and just being careful. And I think that's something that we would focus on in our classes. We've done those things before, and I think that through our POP program, we can offer these kinds of services in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And John, same question.
Yeah, so particularly in, for instance, crimes against seniors, we've all probably talked to somebody, and oftentimes people that really aren't that senior necessarily, who've fallen for these scams where, someone calls and says, "Oh, Grandma, I'm in jail in Mexico, and I need you to send some bail money," or they say, they've crashed a car and they're in the hospital, or any number of things where people are just convincing, and they convince people to go out and withdraw money and wire it, or buy a green dot card or a preloaded Visa, something of that nature, read the numbers off to people. The next thing you know, your money's gone. And really even to the point where the banks have been getting hit through these spoofers are so good that they're able to get information from people on the Zelle program. You may be familiar with that. These other cash transfer programs. So really nothing is safe to a certain extent. And really how you address that is education. And whether that's through your social media programs, whether that's through visiting banks, one of the most effective things that we've seen is when, say, an elderly person goes to the bank and they want to get $3,000 out, and that's very unusual for them. Oftentimes, the teller will refuse, and that's because of that intercooperative education component where you reach out to your community partners and you say, "Hey, this is what's happening. How can we put our heads together and fix it, or at least try to prevent it?" And I think that's a great example of what you can do to try to protect your most vulnerable populations.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question here. How do you see integrating mental health workers with the everyday business of the sheriff's office?
So currently there is an integrated mental health worker, both at the police department and Napa Police Department, as well as at the sheriff's office. The way I see it is we just don't have enough of them. There's one for each department. They can only work so many hours, and I would love to see funding and availability of having somebody 24 hours a day, where you could reduce some of your use of force issues by taking a mental health worker with you to a call, or somebody's agitated, or perhaps not taking their medication as prescribed, or just having a really bad day. And you're able to bring in a calmer voice, a different approach, slow things down a little bit, because you've got this mental health worker that's, as law enforcement officers, these things have fallen on our shoulders, primarily because, quite honestly, we're awake all day and all night, and we're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays, weekends, rain, snow, doesn't matter. There's always a deputy sheriff working. And so there's not always mental health services working, and that's not a dig at them at all. There's only so much funding to go around. But wouldn't it be great if we could do that 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, and have that ability to dig deep? And again, de-escalation requires two things. And everybody talks about de-escalation when it comes to mental health. It requires time and distance. And sometimes somebody with a calmer voice, less authoritative stance, is able to create that time and distance that otherwise might not be available to you.
Thank you. And Oscar?
Yeah, I think what you're suggesting, or what the question is talking about, is a mobile crisis response team. which we have one. It's not large enough, as John mentioned. There is funding and recruitment to expand on it and make it bigger. And I think it's headed in the right direction. We were able to work with those partners, one of the many partners we were able to work with, to clear out the homeless encampments at what was known as the Bowl. And one of the instrumental people in that project and in clearing out that 6-year encampment was the mental health worker that's embedded with our sheriff's office. He was involved from the get-go. We did a lot of planning. I was at several meetings, but that clearance was headed up by city officials and county homeless and outreach officials. It was not headed up by the sheriff's office. And our embedded mental health worker was an integral, important part of that. Using those mental health resources, not just in crisis, and having that ability to bring them out in crisis, and again, training our people to talk lower and slower and de-escalate people is going to be a very important part as we see more and more mental health cases in our community and we see more needs. But I think we're across the country and across the state, we're headed in the right direction and identifying the need for more embedded and response teams that are crisis and mental health trained.
Thank you. And now that's the end of our time for questions. And so we will move into closing statements. And since John opened, Oscar, now you will start with the closing statement. You will each have 2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you, League, and thank you for hosting this today. I think it was there was some great conversation and some really good, well thought out questions and good discussion today. And I'm honored to be a part of it. Again, I have 30 years of experience with the County of Napa, 26 with the Sheriff's Office. I am the most experienced candidate because I have 9 years of law enforcement management experience and executive development throughout my career. I have always been involved in this community, whether it was coaching kids in soccer in Santa Elena and then taking them on a field trip as part of the SAL program, or working out with kids, or even when I was younger, many years ago, actually boxing with kids, where they said, hey, we get to spar with the coach. And then, coaching for the last 22 years, kind of focused on coaching boxers. I've always been involved in the community. I've always tried to give back because that's how I was raised. I'm very appreciative. I was raised through in a vineyard worker family where hard work is encouraged. We look for hard work, we welcome it, and that's been a part of my life from day one. And being able to transition from a vineyard worker family to a career in public safety has been very beneficial for me, for my career, for my family. And I look forward to meeting more people in this community, as I've met many already, and continuing to meet more people as not just during the campaign, but beyond the campaign. I also look forward to, I know we're working on more forums, including a historic Spanish forum, which I'm very excited about. I think this community is long overdue. And I think I'm glad that the League was able to translate today's. I'm looking forward to a forum on KVON. Thank you.
Thank you. And John, your closing.
So, as you probably noticed, my signs have a slogan on them: experience matters, and it does matter. I have 27 years experience in law enforcement. I have 3 years of experience as the undersheriff, which is the person that is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the sheriff's office. Every single person, program, division, bureau, dollar goes through the undersheriff spot. And when you look at, there's a saying that says that smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. And the reality is, the 3 years I was undersheriff, we had giant wildfires, pandemics, officer-involved shootings, social justice issues. And I learned a tremendous deal working with Sheriff John Robertson on a day-to-day basis, making the executive level decisions that needed to be made to keep everything moving smoothly. And I'm the only person that can say that. And I'm really grateful to be here, honestly. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you all, to tell you about myself and my family, my upbringing, to let you know a little bit about what's in here. And I'm also really grateful to have the support of all of our chief law enforcement officials in this valley. The District Attorney, Allison Haley, supports me. Chief Probation Officer Amanda Gibbs support me. The chiefs of police are very supportive as well. And as well as the Calistoga Fire Chief, Steve Campbell, is a supporter of my campaign and my race to be the sheriff. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I think they've seen that experience matters. They've seen where the experience lies. And I think that speaks for itself. And thank you so much.
Thank you, John, and thank you both. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, we really appreciate both your time to participate tonight and your willingness to run and serve the communities you've already have, but for this position. And now I return the forum back to Yolanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. We especially thank the audience for joining this session to meet the candidates and for proposing your thoughtful questions. For further information about our upcoming Board of Supervisors forums, about all the candidates and ballot measures, linked to our Voters Edge and other election information, please visit the League's easy-to-use website, lwvnapa.org. If you would like to be involved with the LWV men and women helping make democracy work for everyone, it's easy to join us. Visit our website. A reminder that the deadline to register to vote and still get a ballot in the mail is May 23rd. You can vote conditionally in person up to until 8 p.m. on June 7th at the vote center or the election office. If you have moved or changed your name or wish to change your party affiliation since your last registered, you need to re-register. If you vote by mail in Napa County, you can avoid any postal delivery delays by using one of the many drop boxes in Napa County, and you do not need postage. All drop boxes and some vote centers will be available on May 9th. The election department would like us to announce that we are in need of more people to help with the elections office. Please check the elections office. Let me see. Here we go. Okay. The election department. Finally, please encourage your family and friends and neighbors to vote in this election. Every vote counts. Please don't forget to re-register if you have moved. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.